Welcome to A Little More History with Mrs. Moore. Hi, everybody. This is Mrs. Moore. Welcome to our first lecture on prehistory and the theories of the origins of man. And today we're going to be taking a look at this idea of prehistory. What is it? And how is it a part of what we study? Because you're looking at me right now and you're saying, Mrs. Moore, I thought this was a history class. What do you mean prehistory? And that's a great question. So let's take a look at what the difference between history and prehistory is. And I'm going to click myself out for a little bit here. But history is, by definition, the written recordings of the past. We're going to find that a lot of different cultures left us records behind, whether they're diaries or accounts of what happens at court or pictures or calendars. All of those are written records. But there was a time in human history before recorded records, before writing was invented. And prehistory is that study of what happened then. How do we know what people look like, how they lived? What clues can we get from what's been left behind? And that's the science of prehistory. But prehistory is like any other discipline in the world. It's going to have its boundaries set by your own worldview. And everybody has a worldview. A worldview is very much like a pair of glasses. If you've noticed, I wear glasses and I am blind as a bat. If I were to ask you to hold up a number of fingers in the back of the room and have me guess, and I take my glasses off, I would tell you that I think you have a hand. I cannot see that far. My glasses help me to interpret the world and focus in clearly on what's being presented. A worldview is like that. It is the lens, the beliefs that you have that influence how you view the world. And sometimes you can have on the right lenses and see things clearly. And sometimes you can have the wrong lenses on and things can be misinterpreted. You might have perfect eyesight, but if I give you my glasses to look at the world through, it's going to be very cloudy. Why? Because they're the wrong lenses. They're not the lenses we were intended to have. So we all have a worldview. And as you continue through Fort Worth Christian, we're going to encourage you to adopt a Christian worldview or a biblical worldview. So what does that look like? Well, if we're talking about the world and the creation of man, the origin of man, we're going to talk as what does the Bible have to say about it? That's a biblical worldview. And so the Bible, we believe, is the Word of God. It's without error, and it accurately describes God's creation of the world and mankind. So we're going to look in the Bible and we're going to see what does God have to say about the creation of man. And in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 27, he says, "So God created human beings in his image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created them." So a biblical worldview about prehistory and the origins of man would tell us that God created man. And not only did he create man, but he created man in his image, which means that every person is an image bearer of God. And therefore, every person needs to be treated with dignity, needs to be honored, just as a king would honor an ambassador from a foreign kingdom who's carrying him a flag, which is the image of that kingdom with him. We all carry that image of God into this world and therefore need to honor all people. Now, that's the biblical worldview about man. But there's another worldview, which is a scientific worldview, and it looks at the creation of man, it looks at prehistory, and it's trying to discover the secrets of creation apart from the movement of the Creator. And what we mean by that is they're looking at a naturalistic worldview. They're trying to see if God was not the Creator, if nature created everything, how were things created by nature? So one group is looking at nature, one group is looking at God as the origin of all things. Now, in the scientific worldview, there are two types of scientists who deal primarily with prehistory. The first are called anthropologists, The second are archaeologists. And both of these scientists formulate their opinions based on evidence left behind by man. So an anthropologist studies mankind itself. He's going to look at the bones. He's going to be able to look at a group of fossils and be able to figure out how many people are in this group of fossils. Do we have a male or a female? Do we have a child or an adult? You can tell all of these things just by looking at the bones, and that's what an anthropologist will do. An archaeologist, on the other hand, is one who studies the artifacts that man has left behind. So we look at pottery, we look at different things of stone tools, all of these things, buildings. Archaeologists would study these artifacts. So we've got really two competing worldviews of man. And it's really important to note right from the beginning that both of these views cannot exist simultaneously. The scientific worldview says that man evolved. He started as an ape and he became a man. The biblical creation story says that man was created from the dust by God, not created as an ape and evolved, but man was created as man is today. So both of these views are extreme polar opposites of each other. One says that man was created and one says that man evolved from a lower being. Okay, we're going to look at both of these views. Now, within these two groups of thought, they're kind of organized by two different groups of people. We give them names. We say creationists and human evolutionists. A creation scientist wants to uncover the intelligent design found in God's creation. And those scientists will look out at the world and say, you cannot look at all this diversity and see how everything, even though it is so different, works in harmony with each other. You cannot tell me that that was not designed by someone or something. They look at the intelligent design found in creation. But on the other hand, you have human evolutionists who want to take all of the fossils ever found, place them in a timeline that demonstrates that everything evolved from everything else. So they're both starting from very different presuppositions, from two very different starting points. Creation scientists say there was a creator. Human evolutionists say that there was no creator, there was just nature. All right? So today we're going to take a look at secular evolution. We're going to take a look at the theory behind it. And one of the things that I want you to understand is that a theory is simply an educated guess. It has not been proven, therefore it is not a fact. It's just a theory. But a theory is, what if all of this was true? What would this look like? Let me take this piece of evidence and this piece of evidence and see if I can string them together to form something that is logical. I want us to understand secular evolution because we as Christians are called to be ambassadors into this world. We need to know what the world believes so that we can approach it with our own Christian truth and share that truth with others. So we're going to begin with what most secular evolutionists believe to be the first link in this evolutionary chain, and it's a group called hominids. Okay, now hominids existed, no doubt about it, but a human evolutionist would say that a hominid is an early ancestor of modern man, where a creationist would believe that these were a species of animals that have become extinct, that a hominid was not a man. It could be man-like an ape is like a man, but it was not a human being. Okay, so scientists have theorized that man evolved from an earlier species of man-like hominid creatures. They were more ape than man, and they share certain characteristics, but they are not the same species as modern man, and evolutionists would say this as well. They're not the same species as man. So in order to start this journey into secular evolution, we have to go to a place called the Great Rift Valley. It's found on the continent of Africa, And as you all know, the Earth is made up of a series of tectonic plates, and these plates are constantly shifting and moving and causing earthquakes and volcanoes and things like that. Well, in this Great Rift Valley, instead of two plates coming together, we've got two plates pulling apart. And as these plates pull apart, we see deeper and deeper into the Earth's crust, which means we can look down millions of years in this valley to where life was a million years ago. Over the succeeding centuries, dirt has piled up on top of dirt has piled up on top of dirt has piled up, and we've got a lot of our fossils buried deep within the ground. But as these plates pull apart, we're able to see what the Earth looked like a million years ago. And in this Great Rift Valley, we're finding a lot of fossils left behind, creatures that were dead, tools that were left behind. And so a lot of our understanding of prehistory comes from this Great Rift Valley region. And so at the end of part one here, I want you to write down the answers, what you think the answers are to these four questions. Number one, what are the two views of hominids? Because that's where we're going to start. What do both groups believe about hominids? Number two, I want you to tell me, where's the Great Rift Valley located and why is it important in finding ancient fossils? What's the big deal about the Great Rift Valley? And then three, what's the biblical worldview of the origin of man? And then number four, I want you to write down for me any questions you have so far. I want you to have at least one or two questions based on what we've talked about. And then when we Zoom or when we get together in class, we'll talk about all of these different things together.